Welcome to the worst nightmare of all. Reality.
Explore the lesser-known stories of our unknown world. Join the pursuit of the paranormal with Ash
Hello,
and
Ash.
Greg.
How are you doing?
I'm good, Greg. How are you?
We have to stop that intro because that's what I say every episode, and people skipping through going, "Hello, Ash. Hello, Ash. Hello, Ash. Hello, Ash. Hello, Ash."
Well, we're on to our next 100 episodes now, so you can
Yeah.
come up with a new intro from now on.
Yeah. So this is episode 101,
Yeah.
which is amazing, of the main episodes, and we are pleased to be joined again for somebody we haven't spoke to for about a year, and we've spoken to a couple of times and been on his podcast as well. We're joined by Ben from 401 Files. How are you doing, Ben?
I'm really well. Thank you for having me. It's been like
Yeah.
you just said there. It's been about a year, hasn't it, since we last spoke? So
Yeah.
it's nice to be back chatting to you guys.
Yeah,
Awesome.
last time we spoke, we were talking about Elon Musk going to Mars and they wouldn't
that's
allow
right.
it, and then all of a sudden his rocket blew up on the day that we spoke as well, which is quite
Yeah.
mad. So, and we've talked about Jesus being a hybrid alien. We've
Yeah.
been down some absolute rabbit holes.
We have.
So yeah. So welcome back. Welcome back. How have you been? How is 401 Files going? And I know you've been doing loads of stuff recently about some poltergeist stuff. I've been trying to keep up with everything, but there's so much content out there of all the people we speak to, and it's just trying to keep up with everybody. It's mental. So, how's things?
Yeah, really well. Things are going really, really well. The documentary, thank God, is back up and running now. For a long time, I had to put that on hold because my laptop died, and I do a lot of the work, the editing and things on the laptop. So thankfully now I've managed to correct that, get that fixed, and the documentary is moving in the right direction again, thank God. And the channel itself, 401 Files channel, we've introduced lives now as well, which is a new thing. Before it was just me getting out there, boots on the ground, exploring some of these hotspot areas. Whereas now we're doing like an open lines live session every Friday. I might have to change that in the next few weeks coming up because I'll have my children and stuff. But yeah, it's been every Friday. We get people calling in with a range of stories, everything from cryptids, paranormal, UFOs, and extraterrestrials.
Cool.
Cool. I noticed I've seen not too long ago. You were got quite a bit of newspaper coverage.
Yeah.
In quite a few different newspapers. How did that come about? What was that about?
So I was approached by a newspaper, only a small newspaper article called the Gazette and Herald, which is a local newspaper here in Malton. Malton's a small town northeast of England. And yeah, basically we got chatting and I decided to share my story about my experience growing up, which was with an extraterrestrial being or creature. And so I just expected that it would be with this little small time newspaper, the Gazette and Herald. Little did I know that when I woke up the next morning, I was on India News, I was in China, I was on Lad Bible, all over the place. And to be honest, I knew that it might go that way because once you've shared your story with one newspaper, you're opening the doors for everybody to grab hold of that story and do what they want with it. And it was just funny for me, really funny just seeing how they each twisted it and each put their own spin on it. That was really, really funny. But I had no hard feelings about it. Like I I don't begrudge any of these newspapers. That's what they do. So, and it's coverage for me as well, which is always a bonus.
Did you get because with these types of stories, especially in some other publications, you can get sort of negative, I guess, comments and so on. Were you sort of reading the comments on these posts?
Yeah. I always well, I normally don't, but my brother we're totally like chalk and cheese, me and my brother. So, whereas I'm quite thick skinned, I don't really read comments. It doesn't bother me too much. My brother, any little like sign of someone having a poke or a dig, his arms up in the air, and have you read this? Have you seen what they're saying about you here? It's like, so I'm like, guys, I don't worry too much about that. But because he'd said it, I decided to go on and have a read. And again, I just find it funny. You know, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, and you know, some of the comments wasn't accurate, so they've got the story wrong from the start, which you know you can't inaccurate assumption of someone if you've got the story wrong from the start. But yeah, no, they were funny. They were funny.
So one thing I was following of yours, probably I don't know, 12 months or more. Trying to put some dates ahead of you were building a den
Yeah.
in the woods, and then you sort of documenting how that was coming along, and then there was a storm, and then you sort of had to sort of restart it again. So what was the reason behind one building the den, and how is it now?
Yeah, so I spend a lot of my time on the North Yorkshire Moors, which is a hotspot here in the UK for things like cryptid sightings. There's a whole range of paranormal stories coming from that area and UFOs and extraterrestrials. And because I spend so much time there, it is like a 30-minute drive from where I live, 30, 40-minute drive. I just thought it would be cool to have like a shelter, some kind of a bushcraft place where I can go leave pans and pots there, some basic amenities, and spend multiple days there rather than coming back home all the time. Because I do spend a lot of my time, like I said, boots on the ground, investigating these areas where the stories are coming in from. So it just made sense to have like a little shelter made there on the moors itself. And yeah, I started building it. It took me about 6 months, 5 months, or something like that, on and off, working. And the first one that I built, the location wasn't exactly perfect, to be honest. And I always, in the back of my mind, thought that this one might get discovered anyway. But as it was, I can't remember the name of the storm now, but we had a storm come through. It was all in the news in the local newspapers. But one day when I'd gone back to the shelter, although the shelter was still standing, there was a large tree that had fallen right in the path of the shelter. So it was kind of like, well, I can still use it, but do I want to die from this thing if it falls down while I'm inside there? So yeah, I decided to move on and rebuild. And thankfully now this one that I've built is a lot better. I've learned so much more from the first one that I built. Um, and the second one, the one that I'm in now, I don't think it will be found for a very long time. It's been there for about a year now. I've left so many valuable things there. Well, not valuable, but things that people would want to take if they came across it. And nothing's been touched apart from one time I had 4 coffee sachets that were chewed through by mice or rats or something. So somewhere out there, there's a coffee off its head on coffee, a rat, sorry, off its head on coffee. So,
So when we first spoke to you all those years ago, well, two, um, the first time we spoke, you were actively going out there looking at where wildman locations were.
yeah.
So, how has your journey from those days and documenting those bits, because I know you'd had some interesting experiences there, right up to sort of where you are today, um, how has your perspective changed on cryptids and the paranormal as a whole?
So when I first started out exploring and investigating some of these claims, obviously the wild man theory would come up quite a lot, and my belief in the wild man, the UK Bigfoot, was always that. Well, not always. It started off like other people that it might be a flesh and blood creature. That was soon blown out of the water, and I soon became more favourable towards it being extraterrestrial, if it's anything at all. So when I get out there now talking about Bigfoot and the wild man, normally what I'm referring to is people seeing something that's of extraterrestrial origin.
Hmm.
So it changed quite dramatically. I wouldn't say that it changed so much, like 'cause I was always an open book to what it might have been. When I got out there, I wasn't saying this is flesh and blood. I was just saying that this is what people are thinking it is. And then over time, through things that I've never seen anything to suggest that there's a flesh and blood or an undiscovered creature roaming around in the English countryside. I've just never seen that. But going off extraterrestrial reports, things that people have seen in that phenomena, what I have realized is that they come in all shapes and sizes. So that's where I took the transition is that, well, if aliens can look like a whole range of things, who's to say that they can't look like a Bigfoot or a wild man? And maybe that is what people are seeing.
Because your experience was with a reptilian type
Yeah, like I don't really like to
creature,
use the
wasn't it?
word reptilian because I just don't know. But I mean, if people want to call it that, then that is the only thing I can really call it. That's the nearest thing I can think of actually to describe this. If I'm trying to give someone an idea of what I saw, if I say reptilian, I'm sure that people will straight away have a rough idea. Maybe not accurate, but it'll be somewhere in the ballpark of what I saw. So I do use the word reptilian, but it's not something that I would say 100%, that's what I saw.
I suppose when you say reptilian, some people go to like
Yeah,
the King of England is a reptilian and
that's right.
all
And then
that stuff.
they start imagining like, snake eyes and scales, and I never saw anything like that on my experience on this creature.
So we've spoken to a lot of people, and on our sort of journey in this podcast, and a lot of people talk around UFOs or UAPs, um, where these are seen. Also, cryptids are sort of seen at the same time in the same area,
Yeah,
and it seems to be a theme that when we think about and what we've spoken about with the fact that cryptids, Bigfoot, wild man could be some kind of interdimensional being.
yeah,
Um, so that's why we don't see them a lot, because they're not technically here until
yeah,
they are here, and then they go. They're not actually resident as such. So
yeah,
that could also explain the UK wild man type thing, that there
yeah,
are these portals that it appears to and from, um, to remove the need for a vast open space for it to live in. Like in the
yeah,
US, there's obviously the national parks. We've got our national parks, but we don't necessarily have the the vast open spaces, away from the public. What's your take on that? Do you think that's
yeah. I
a
guess the
plausible
counter argument
explanation?
that you'll find people will come at you with that one is people will say, well, who's to say that the extraterrestrials are interested in Bigfoot? So you're saying we're saying that we see orbs at the same time that a Bigfoot is sighted, or we're seeing these think signs of telepathy taking place, and there's other strange things like smells taking place at the same time, and it's too much of a coincidence that they must be linked. Well, some people might say they're not linked. It's just that the extraterrestrials have a keen interest in the creature as we do, and it's just by chance that you've seen the two at the same time. I don't believe that. That's not the side of the fence that I sit on. What I believe is that they are linked, um, and it isn't coincidental. I do believe that they don't live completely oblivious to each other. I think that Bigfoots are well aware that extraterrestrials are real and who they are, what they are, and I think the same for extraterrestrials and UFOs. They do know about Bigfoot, if such a creature exists at all.
So when you're on your, you call it sort of boots on the ground investigations,
Yeah.
is there anything you've sort of come across or sort of any kind of evidence you found recently?
It's hard to say evidence, but I've definitely had some strange things happen to me. So there was one time when I was at the shelter that I just mentioned to you guys that I've been building in a hotspot on the North Yorkshire moors. It's stooped in all sorts of strange reports coming back from years and years ago, right up to the present day from that area. And I was there playing around with the EMF reader, the electric magnetic field reader. You guys will know what that is from your investigations. And I was asking questions with the EMF reader faced away from me, so I can't tell what lights were showing up, if they were at all. And as I'm asking the questions out, you've got to bear in mind as well, this is nighttime, so it's pitch black in the middle of these woods in a hot spot with lots of strange reports. It's already a creepy setting. Um, on the EMF reader, when I look back, it's lighting up to every single question that I've asked in response. But when I'm not asking the questions, the lights aren't moving at all. I think nothing of it because I can't see until I get back the next day. So I go to bed, and halfway through the night, I'm awoken by Siri on my phone, which is activated, saying something like "He's here." So I woke up.
Crikey.
I woke up. I woke up. I started filming. And it already said it by the time obviously I'd woken up. That's what woke me up. So I didn't have time to start filming before it said it, obviously. But it said "He's here." Now I was like, "What does that mean? Like, is that Siri saying to me, Ben, someone's here?" Or is that someone instructing other things in the forest? He's here, like meaning me asleep on the bed. So that was quite unnerving.
I don't know
Um,
which would be more terrifying, to be honest with you.
yeah, I mean, and the thing is, right, Siri. I've had people say that Siri could have been activated, and there's all sorts of problems and malfunctions with Siri. But what are the chances of it saying something as creepy as that for someone that's actually out there to investigate those things? Like he's here. He could have said anything. He could have said absolutely anything. So that was quite freaky. Then I went to Cannock Chase as well for a 2-day, 3-day investigation. Met up with a few other investigators there, and we captured like these really weird red lights, like these glowing eyes that move through the forest. And it's so strange. The footage itself is really strange. It's on my channel on one of the videos. We caught all this. At the time, we never saw nothing, we never heard nothing, but it's as clear as day. These two red glowing eyes moving through the forest. Now, some people might say it was a deer, but if you look at the footage, the foliage that's in front of me is, I mean, if it was a deer for a start, we would have heard it there and then. You know, deers aren't quiet whenever they hear humans around there. I mean, I see deers all the time with my dog. They just stampede out of the forest. They're not trying to, watch where they're stepping and stuff. You'd hear a twig snap at least. But we never heard a single thing. And some people might say it was a rabbit, but the foliage in front of where I was standing was higher than waist height. Now, if it was a small game animal like a fox or a badger or a rabbit, you just wouldn't have seen it. You wouldn't have seen the eyes at all. So whatever this thing was, it was tall enough to stand above the foliage, but quiet enough to leave the area without us hearing a thing at the time.
Wow. What do you think it might have been?
I have no idea. I googled as well when I got back. I googled like eye shine from different animals, and the eye shine that I was coming back with was all green. Like deer's a green eye shine, foxes and stuff are greeny, yellowy. So I just don't know. I mean, the logical thing to say is that it was a forest animal, but none of that makes sense when you start saying which animal. Like fox, well, it can't have been a fox. Foxes are quite, sly, sleek. They can maneuver out of the forest quite quietly, but you just wouldn't have
They're
seen
quite
it because the
small as well,
foliage
fox, aren't they?
really small. That's what I'm saying. A badger, fox, rabbit, we can rule all them out because the foliage in front of me was nearly. If I was to walk into it, I reckon it would have come up to my shoulder height. I'm 5'5", so I'm not really the tallest guy, but still taller than a fox and a badger. So you just want to see those small game animals.
So
Yeah, 'cause we've
Cannock
been
Chase.
Cannock Chase, yeah,
Oh,
and
yeah.
we've walked through kind of
Yeah,
like top out foliage that comes up to here, like some are high taller than you.
yeah,
You're like sort of walking through the paths and you're surrounded either side by just foliage. It's just
yeah.
plants and leaves and stuff. And I mean, we never sort of we didn't see anything unusual,
Yeah.
but it's a crazy place to be. It does feel weird
Yeah.
We did have a
when you're there.
few strange experiences, but we didn't see anything, did we?
Yeah.
It was all sort of paranormal investigation type equipment that we were using. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, rather strange. Strange
So
place.
you mentioned you sort of with a group of investigators at Cannock Chase. When you're like, out in Yorkshire moors, are you usually solo when you're out there?
Yeah, usually I am. For a few reasons, really. When you're on your own, you can rule out other people being a factor straight away. So that's always handy. It's good in a sense when you're with someone because you've got someone else to validate anything that you do see, and you can compare notes that way. But for me, just getting out there on my own, I know there can be no trickery. A lot of people, no one knows where I go. I don't tell anyone really. I tell them the rough area, but that area is a big area. So for anyone to be making sounds or running in front of cameras and playing tricks, it just would be near on impossible because of where I am, and I know that I'm on my own.
Do you get freaked out?
Yeah, massively. Like this is something that you never learn from. Like after all the years of doing this, because I was in the army before getting out there and investigating, and before that I was in Cub Scouts growing up, so I'm really well accustomed to the outdoors and the different sounds that nature can produce. I've spent most of my life in the woods. Um, but you never get used to the idea of being alone. It's always at the back of your mind, that God, what am I doing here? I'm laid on the forest floor in the middle of the North Yorkshire moors, and nobody knows where I am. That's always going to creep in it from time to time.
Doesn't put you off though.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't put me off. And there has been times though. I mean, there has been times where I've thought, what the hell am I doing? Like, um, I lost my phone one time. I lost my phone. I was sat on a log and I was filming a bit for one of the videos on the channel. And I stood back up, put my phone in my pocket, and carried on walking about another mile and a half. Went to pull my phone out to do some more recording and thought, crap, I ain't got my phone. So I had to literally try to retrace my steps, and there's no path. You're not on some kind of well-trodden route here. You're walking over, like jumping over becks and stepping over, falling down trees. So I had to retrace as best I could. And I found it roughly around the area where I'd sat and done the last bit of recording. But by this point, it was now coming dark. So I had to rush like mad to get like the tent up and stuff. It was just an absolute nightmare. And because of that, yeah, I was laid there that night thinking, what the hell am I doing here? Like there were so many strange noises at this point. All the animals are coming out. I'm already at that state of alert because of the panic I've had previously. It was a horrible night, a really horrible night.
Hats off to you, because I don't think I could do it.
Yeah.
It's
Not solo. Not solo.
not solo, no. So apart from the weird bit with Siri waking you up, what other, and the eyes at Cannock Chase,
Yeah.
what other weird experiences have had you thinking twice about going back out there?
I think probably the best story I can tell people that don't know who I am is the one that got me interested in this from the start, which is the reptilian, or the extraterrestrial sighting I had when I was younger. So I'll dive into that if you want me to.
Yeah,
Because
please do. Yeah.
there is a better story for that I can tell. Really, that is the one that got me into this. This is really what sparked my interest. And so when I was around 11 or 12 years old, or 10 or 11, somewhere on the age bracket, I was in the Cub Scouts, and we used to always go camping at a place called Snowball Plantation. It's a really well-known woodland area where the Cubs and the Scouts will gather for the weekend. And I used to love going there because that's where I felt like I was in my element. That's where I thrived as a 10 or 11-year-old boy, is practicing bushcraft and being out there in the woods. And this trip went like all the rest. It was brilliant. I had a great time. And it was on the way back from the camping trip. We was on a minibus, and the Cub Scout leader stood up in the middle of the bus and said that we're going to be doing a random stop. If anyone wants to jump off for a quick pee, this would be a good time to do it because we're not stopping again after. So me and my friend who was sat at the back of the bus, we jumped off. And you got to remember, this is like 1997, so times were different now. Now you wouldn't be able to leave an adult sight or anything like that. But we were just stood at the side of the road. It wasn't like they were letting us run all over the place. We were stood at the side of the road taking a pee, and I believe it was just me and my friend that got off. There might have been more, but I only remember me and my friend jumping off from the back of the bus. And instead of standing shoulder to shoulder, taking a pee next to my friend, I ran up this embankment that was in front of me. It wasn't a really high embankment, but it was about shoulder height or something like that. So I'm now stood at the top of this embankment looking into this wooded area. And the first thing that I noticed was a little outbuilding. It was a brick building that wasn't big enough to have lived in. It reminded me of something like a tool shed. And my initial thought looking at this thing was that's where people have stored tools, but where's the bigger part of this building? Where's the rest of it? Like there must have been a house in here at some point. And as I'm looking around for this other part of the building, I saw something move. Now I can't remember if it was to my left or my right. I'm not sure why that would be relevant anyway, but I saw something move, and I looked in that direction, and there was a creature. It was a green, 6.5 feet tall. It walked with a stoop, so it leant forward as it walked, and it had black eyes. Now the eyes wasn't massive, big black wraparound eyes like you'd see on the stereotypical alien greys. These were normal sized eyes, a bit bigger than a human's, but they were black, and its proportions to its body were all weird. Like its arms were a lot longer than what you'd expect. They came past the knees when this thing walked. Now I've often wondered whether it walked with a stoop because it was so dangly, or was it trying to keep a low profile as it sneaked through the woods? I don't know what it was doing or why it was there, but we made eye contact for a few seconds, and it must have only been a few seconds, but we definitely made eye contact, and I totally forgot about this event, which is the weird part. Like for the best part of my life, up into my late 20s, early 30s, I completely forgot about this event. And then one day at work, just not even doing anything related to the phenomena like UFOs or extraterrestrial related, it just came flooding back to me, like it happened yesterday. And I remembered every small detail, even down to the flowers that were growing up through the forest at the time. There were some little white flowers sprouting through. And I remember stood there thinking to myself how weird its feet looked. This thing was olive green from head to toe, and its feet brushed by these little white flowers or whatever they were growing through the forest floor. And I remember stood there thinking, like, oh, that looks so weird, like how it's doing that, brushing through these little flowers. Yeah, it was such a surreal experience, and again, I don't know what I would call that. Is it cryptid? Is it extraterrestrial? I'm really not sure, but I definitely did have that sighting.
You have any other reports like from that specific area that you maybe tried to look for since you remembered?
So, looking into this for the documentary, because I've just mentioned at the start, I'm working on the documentary and it's moving forward and stuff now. So I'm researching that. I don't know where the area is. The thing is, when you're that age, like when you're 9 or 10 years old, you know, you're not thinking that in the next few minutes my life's going to change forever. You just come back off a Cub Scout trip, you're having a good laugh and a good time with your friends on the bus. I really wasn't thinking of landmarks and things to take note of, knowing that I would want to come back one day. So it's very difficult to even pinpoint where we stopped off. And like I said, it was completely a random stop. Something that I never added in that story as well is that when I got back on the bus, I instantly thought to myself that this was a practical joke, like this was a prank. That was my initial thought. Stood there looking at this thing walking through the woods. So what I decided to do was play like play dumb. And I thought, what I'll do is I just won't mention it. And in that way, the joke is on them because they've took all the time and effort, all the planning, and I didn't even see it. So when I got back on the bus, I expected people to go, we got you. Was you scared? And like, no one did. I just sat back down and I waited for someone to say that. And no one mentioned anything about it at all. So that's when, I did start thinking, well, all right, maybe my mum will say something. And I don't know why I think that. This is just my naive young mind because my mum wasn't even on the trip. But I'm thinking my mum will be waiting back at the Cub Scout base in the car and she's going to say it. And she never did. And then, like I said, after that, it completely was erased from my memory for whatever reason. But yeah, very surreal. I think I've just missed completely the question that you asked me there, Ash. Sorry.
No, it's just like sort of you looked in that general area for any other reports of anything
Yeah.
similar.
So sorry to answer that question, Ash. Is on the research for the documentary, I found that 1997 was a very very active year for UFOs. I think there was over 490 reports in 1997 alone in the UK, and I think that 10 of them happened on the 20th of January, which is one day alone. So it was a very active day for sightings. Well, yeah,
Interest, Interesting about the sort of description that you give of the creature.
yeah,
Um, Apart from the eye color, the kind of thing you're describing, I don't know if you've seen Moment of Contact about the Virginia case. And that was
no,
kind of a weird creature that these kids saw back in
yeah.
1996, actually. So around similar times.
Yeah, it's weird. I
Um,
mean, I think the Phoenix Lights was 97 as well.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Hale-Bopp Comet was around that
96,
time as well, I think.
97.
Yeah, 97
Yeah.
when I had my sighting.
Wow.
Haley's
Yeah,
comet was there. Yeah, that was in
Yeah.
March or April when the comet
Yeah, strange.
was there.
interesting.
Hmm.
But yeah, the Virginia one is a great case. Definitely check out the case itself. You would have probably seen the drawing of the creature. Um,
Yeah.
I don't, because obviously one of the big things, and it is for me, that you can smell something and you go, I remember smelling that before.
Yeah.
It's one of those a thing that you can go, I can't remember exactly where, but I remember. Now, have you had any kind of experience like that? Because sometimes that can trigger
Yeah, I
like a
have
memory.
not smells or anything like that. But there's been definitely parts of wooded areas, where I've walked through and I've just
Mm.
stopped and I've gone, wow, like this is very reminiscent of where I was stood. This feels like I've been here before, and this is probably a lot similar to what it must have looked like when that on that day. There've been the white
Okay.
flowers coming through the forest floor again, and I've been walking through them this time. So I've definitely had that moment of reflection and thought, wow, this I bet this is very similar. If I could go back to what that day looked like.
Mm.
So, what are some of the sort of other more general reports from around like North Yorkshire moors that makes you want to go out there and do this?
It's
Any
the
sort of
UFOs
like
and the
good
extraterrestrials.
stories.
There's tons of paranormal stuff coming in from that area. There's countless burial mounds that have been discovered over the years, and they're still being discovered now. Um, and if you think about it, like it's not far from the East Coast, which is Bempton and Flamborough Head. They're really big big hotspots for reports as well. But we had the Vikings pulling up on the East Coast of the shoreline there. There's battles fought all up and down this side of the country. So it's got a lot of history, but it's the UFOs and the extraterrestrials, the strange lights and weird creatures that get sighted there the most.
So I think last time we talked, I think you mentioned your brother before. I think he was gonna start doing something.
Yeah.
Did that happen?
Yeah. God, he's gonna kill me for this. He started a podcast. He started a podcast. And I wrote the name down. I just can't remember what it's called now. God, I can't remember what
That's
that was
terrible.
called. But he started a podcast. It is a recent one, and basically he's retelling the stories of me growing up. Us growing up in a haunted house. So yeah, I will try and get that back to you. The name of it. Sorry for that. He's gonna kill me.
I just remember you mentioned it last time. Like your brother's gonna start doing something.
Yeah,
Like that.
cheers for that.
So
You know
just to
exactly. You knew I'd
check
forget
in.
that. That's what you did. You thought there's no way Ben's gonna remember this.
So, do you think that those experiences back then, because I know we have briefly touched on some of those experiences from when you were younger,
Yeah.
but do you think those experiences have progressed your journey down like the cryptids, UFO, paranormal avenue,
Yeah.
or they've shaped that journey? So that not the fact that because of that you've gone on this journey, it's that they've continued to be on that journey with you, that these things are related. We have a lot of people that have UFO experiences, abduction experiences that they can remember, that have also had poltergeist and paranormal activity from a very young age. It's
Yeah.
seems to be very, very common. And when we first started the podcast, we would speak to people about individual sections of this whole umbrella of sort of weirdness and high strangeness. And as we've spoken to more and more people, it all seems to blur. It seems to be one thing, and one thing seems to trigger further experiences across cryptids, across UFOs, UAPs, aliens. And do
Yeah.
you think that's what's happened to you, or do you think they are separate entities, for want of a better phrase,
Yeah.
but separate parts of your life, or are they connected?
No, I think they're definitely separate. The experiences that I had in the haunted house growing up, the paranormal activity side of things hasn't carried on with me as I've gone through life. I've not really had many more paranormal sightings since being in the house. But it definitely opened my mind with the paranormal. And then obviously having the sighting with the extraterrestrial being, that made me then once it came back to me, that made me start researching what it could have been. So I started typing in things like the green man and green creature, and it's when you start doing that that the doors really open, because you realize that some people who are seeing cryptids here in the UK also see a green cryptid, which was completely unbeknown to me. So then I start thinking, all right, well, maybe I saw a cryptid then and not an extraterrestrial. And then you start going down that path. And that's kind of like the natural evolution of how I've come to be where I am today. I never really just set out looking for an extraterrestrial, although that's what I thought I saw at the time. It might be a host of other things. I don't think that they follow me around. I don't think that these things happen to me because I'm special in any way. I just think that I'm putting myself in the right places at the right time. You've got to look at where I'm heading. These places have got hundreds and hundreds of sightings from all walks of life. Now, if you put yourself there enough times, eventually you are going to have something that you can't explain happen.
So, with everything that's sort of coming out over the last few years about UAPs, UFOs, obviously it raises further questions that if UFOs are real, which in my mind and the US government's mind, they are.
Yeah.
You have the whole, do we go down the abduction route? Are they taking us?
Yeah.
And then at what point do we say that ghosts or spirits, poltergeists are real? Because there seems to be literally hundreds of thousands of people sharing paranormal
Yeah.
accounts
Yeah.
monthly. You only have to look for on Spotify for, you can type in poltergeist and there's
Yeah.
literally tons of stuff. And I just wonder, what's the difference in somebody accepting that UFOs are real and ghosts? I say ghosts because there's all manner of sort of different versions, like poltergeist, spirits, stone tape
and
theories.
it's a great question, Greg. It's a great question because like out of all the phenomena that I talk about, the paranormal is definitely the one that I want to touch the least because I know that stuff's real. Like I've experienced it firsthand, and it scares the life out of me. And I don't think I would have to go too far. I don't think I would have to spend too much time out, boots on the ground, before I experience something because it's that real. The difference, I think, that it doesn't get the same attention as the UFO phenomena is because it's not tangible. You can't touch the paranormal. Often it's things being thrown through the air, and before you know it, it's landed and smashed. You can't really reverse that time and watch it happen again in real time. You can't, if someone sees an apparition, you've only got their word for it. So it's not really tangible. But when we talk about extraterrestrials and the abduction theory, we're talking about people coming back that are claiming to have, devices inserted in the skin. Now that is tangible. If we can take that out and we can examine that and we can find out that it's not from Earth, then maybe there's some credibility to what this person is saying. In the Betty and Barney Hill case, for instance, when Betty came back and she described this star system that the beings had taken her to, for a long time that star system wasn't even recognized or publicly accepted by astronomers. So you've got to start thinking about things like that and think, how did she know this then? Like if she's not telling the truth, how did she, little Betty from wherever, have this knowledge when top professional people like astronomers around the world didn't even know until years later? Um, and it's just a shame, really, because like I said, the paranormal is definitely real and is probably more real than any other thing that I talk about on my channel. Although I don't talk about it as much as the extraterrestrial and UFO phenomena. The sad part of that is that we can't touch it. We can't bring anything in for evidence. It's at the end of the day, it's always just photos. It's always just video of someone that's said they've experienced something, and that's a real shame. But it, I, who knows? In time, as technology progresses, we might find something that can prove the paranormal beyond reasonable doubt. We might find something like a piece of equipment or technology that will allow us to say, look, this is not normal, this is not of this earth. But right now, it's very, very difficult.
It's interesting because me and Ash have we've had some great experiences doing paranormal experiments with the Estes method with a spirit box. That's been one of our most successful. I say successful in terms of getting intelligent communication of some kind in response to questions we're asking, and we've witnessed some great stuff out by Cannock Chase as well, like stuff that when we talked to Ash about it afterwards, because he was blindfolded and had spirit box, it was conversations that he was aware of. We could hear some of it, but it was definitely the full conversation. Our specific names were coming out, very creepy.
Yeah.
But do you think if the government said, and this is something we've touched on before, they'll go, you see that object in the sky? We're aware of that now, it's real. But because it's so far away, people can kind of ignore it. If they said that ghosts are real, but they're in your house, we don't know where they come from, what they are. We can't control it. They can literally do what they want in your house without anybody being aware of it, and it could happen at any time to anyone. I think that's kind of a freaky conversation.
Yeah, definitely.
That people accept ghosts because it's part of the Hollywood and horror films.
A lot of religion as well.
UAPs and part of religion as well. Yeah, you've even got some of the old Christmas Carol story. The guy is visited by 3 ghosts on Christmas Eve. So
it amazes me. It does amaze me how the paranormal is not, universally accepted. You still find people even now that say, "Oh, you believe in ghosts, I bet, don't you?" As if that's like a jab at me. It's like, well, don't you? That's the real laughing matter here, is that you don't, because like you just said there, you go back through history. with people doing exorcisms, and even the Egyptian faith talked about the spirit world, and massively. It's a real thing. The paranormal is 100% real for anyone that's listening to this, and just do be careful when you do get out there and play with the paranormal, because I've experienced it firsthand, and it is a terrifying thing that does exist. It is real.
So you like to get out there into the field. Have you tried CE5, sort of the human initiated, sort of
Yeah.
with extraterrestrials? Have you tried that
Yeah,
before?
I've not done it on like a big scale, like because I think that with CE5, the human initiated contact, they say that the more numbers you've got doing it, the better result you'll get. So I've never done it to a scale like that, so I can't really give it a good assessment. But I have done it on my own, and on looking back on the footage, produced really good results of things that wasn't there at the time that I was aware of, and it definitely looks anomalous to me when you look back at the footage. There's definitely a craft there in the sky behaving weirdly. So I have had results, and I know people that do practice CE5 that have had similar results as well.
It's interesting because I know right at the start you mentioned about reptilians because of your experience, and now we're talking about CE5, and it reminds me a lot about some of the stuff from a very controversial figure called David Icke. David
Yeah,
Icke massively divides people, and I get that. I've read loads of his books, and I get why he's the persona that he's been made out to be. But he talked about reptilians and whatnot. And I know we touched briefly about the Queen and the King now being a reptilian. But he actually is in touch with a shaman. I can't remember the guy's name now. And he used to do essentially what I now know to be CE5. He would summon
yeah,
UFOs, UAPs.
yeah,
Now, my question to you is if we can summon them, because that's essentially what we're doing, we got this human initiated contact.
yeah.
What in your mind are these things that people are seeing? And are they the same things like the Tic Tac and the stuff that the RAF and Navy are seeing? What do you think what is it?
Yeah, I think that they are super highly intelligent beings that probably do communicate through telepathy. A lot of these abduction experiences when they come back, they don't talk about these creatures having normal looking mouths. It's usually just a slit. It's almost like they've lost the use for a mouth over thousands and thousands of years of evolution. And again, alongside that, they talk about talking telepathically, where no audible words were used, but they could hear what that being was saying through their head. So C5, when you think about what it is, it's meditation to call in something, is essentially what you're doing. You're using telepathy, which would be a great way for them to communicate with us. And if that is how they're getting called in, then I do see that being plausible. Um, yeah, and I do think they're related to like the Tic Tac craft, and there's so many different types of craft, like the Tic Tacs, the triangles, the discs, even just the orbs of light. And all I think that is different species. I don't think that a lot of the time we get caught in this trap of thinking when we talk about extraterrestrials that it's just one alien. Whatever it may be in your head, Greg, for you, when we talk about aliens, you might be picturing the little grey, and you might think that that's what we're talking about instantly. And for you, Ash, it might be the reptilians. But I think when we talk about aliens, it's all of them. I think the Earth is, what is it, like 5 billion years old or something? The universe is 14 point something billion. There's a long time there where things have been happening before the Earth was even around, and then a long time when the Earth was around where humans wasn't around. I think that there's been civilizations coming and going, whether it's just a stop off gap, before they go off somewhere else. Who knows? But I definitely do believe that we've been contacted many many times over by different species.
Do you think that we were planted here?
From a different species, you mean? Yeah, that's a good
Yeah.
theory. I really like the theory that we came on the back of a meteorite. Like the chemical makeup for life was probably floating around, smashed off another planet, maybe even that had life on it. Because how many times has that happened here on Earth? We don't know. Like, so the the meteorite that killed the dinosaurs out, that might have thrown so much debris back up into space that had the chemical ingredients for life that we might have started life and not even known about it. You know, we might have other humans right now springing up on a different planet, and they might be saying, "Do you think we was planted here?" You know, it's just it's how it goes. So, yeah, I do. I think that is a big possibility.
It's quite an insane thought. I hadn't ever thought of it like that, that we potentially have seeded other planets
Yeah.
when we've been hit by meteors. That's actually a really good shout, actually. What
Yeah, and
a
I'll just
lot.
add to that as well. Like, it is the quickest way. I mean, if you take away the meteorite theory, there, like a meteorite smashes into a planet that's already got life on, and then carries the chemical makeup through space to start life on other planets. Don't think about that for a second, but just think about like an extraterrestrial race, someone that's super highly intelligent. It's going to be far more quicker for them if they can just take that ingredients for life, that chemical makeup, and fire it out into space, knowingly that it's going to smash into planets. Imagine how many planets they might have harbored without ever stepping foot off their own planet. That could happen time and time and time again, and then life sprouts up on them planets, or robots. You know, they get there, they land, they start life off, and they just keep doing it over and over again. You can spread out, and you know, start life again so many times quicker than if you were to actually jump in a physical craft and fly there yourself and try and do it that way. It would just be so much easier to fire the chemical makeup of life into space.
So, do you think that some of these beings or entities, that if you look at the stuff that you can see in the deep oceans, all these weird shit, that these animals that just look, these weird octopus, these weird squid, these weird fish, like that we see these new things all the time, and you're like, what the hell is that all about?
Yeah.
Could some of those actually be these aliens? I don't know. And it's interesting because I've been listening to a podcast recently. It's quite like a 3 hour one, so I have to hit it in sessions,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Um, and it's Ryan Graves, who was a Navy pilot in the US, highly decorated, been in the wars, trainee, trained pilots, jet fighter pilots, and they upgraded their radar systems, their FLIR systems, so their front-looking infrared cameras, around 2018 in some of the F-18s and such like. And as soon as they upgraded the radars, they started seeing these objects,
Yeah.
which appeared every day, all day, for hours and hours. And before that moment of the upgrade, they didn't see them. So,
Yeah.
is there stuff here that, like you mentioned about the technology to see things in the future, is it that everything's here already?
Yeah.
We just can't see it because we haven't got the technology.
Yeah. I believe
And
so.
another thing that makes me think about stuff like that, that we're not intelligent enough to see it yet, however
Yeah.
you want to interpret that. But I read a book called, or about the moon being hollow and being man-made. Obviously, that's some crazy stuff that I've been, but I'm open to all. Since I've been doing this
Yeah.
podcast, I've been open to a lot more weird stuff than I ever dreamed about. But it said that the moon was man-made, and when we're sufficiently advanced enough, we'll understand the message that it was put there for.
Yeah.
And it's quite a good way of thinking. When we get to a certain point in time, we will understand that these beings, these craft, are they probes? The Tic Tac, is it just a probe from somewhere else, like a
Yeah.
drone, essentially, from another planet or another dimension? Or will we get to a point in time in evolution that we will understand everything? And we've talked about
Um,
future humans. Are aliens actually future humans coming back in time, however, to
when you say future humans, do you
find.
mean future from this planet? We've been on this planet and
Mhm.
we've already gone.
Yeah, we've come back in
What I would
time.
ask in that situation is why did only a few of them evolve? Why did only a few progress to be future humans and then fly off? Why did we all not evolve at the same rate to do that? You know, like if
Maybe
we're
we
all
did.
evolving at the same rate, why was this a select few humans, say 200, 3,000, or whatever it may be, say 3,000 humans that we're seeing coming back, they're the future humans. Why did they evolve to that level
Yeah,
of
maybe just astronauts, like future
yeah?
astronauts. Like we've only had, if you believe it, we've only had a certain amount of people on
That's
the
what I'm
moon.
saying though. So if they're future astronauts, how are we not evolved enough to know that that's what they are? Like, 'cause if we're all evolving at the same time, how are we not stood here saying, "Oh, well, that's our astronauts"?
Because they've got this developed this bigger head, these bigger eyes, because they don't need the mouth because we've got sufficiently big enough brains that we can use telepathy.
So
So we get rid of
sorry,
the mouth,
the future
cover
humans are we
spelling.
talking about? So
Yeah.
the
So the
future,
future
yeah,
humans, they could well be these grey aliens or whatever.
yeah, that's what I'm
These
saying. So
creatures
why
that
are
we've
we not
seen
future humans? So if we're all
because
evolving at the
we've not
same time,
evolved, but we haven't evolved that far. They've actually come back in time. They've travelled back to understand where we've gone wrong potentially.
yeah,
What happened sort of 2022, for
yeah.
example, like you've got all manner of weird shit going on at the moment. Ukraine, America's going mental, all that kind of stuff. And they've come back to a certain point in time to go, you know what, we need to either fix this or understand what happened to cause us to go down
But
this
this is where I
direction.
get confused because like that's like us now going back to see Neanderthal. We wouldn't be able to do
Hmm.
that because Neanderthal would have evolved at the same time as us. So, you know, that's what I'm saying. Like, we don't all evolve at different times. Like, if we go back now, we're not going to see Neanderthal because Neanderthal, if they were still on the planet, would be where we are. We all evolve at the same time. You don't have one set of humans that are evolving 2,000 years slower than the other set of humans. That just doesn't happen.
What happens if we go back in time, though? If that was possible, I'm not saying it is, and I
If
don't
we
believe
go
it
back
is.
in
But
time, right? Okay, so I see what you're saying. So you're
so
not
that
okay.
these future
Not evolution.
humans,
Yeah,
no, not evolution. Well, they are essentially future us, but they've come
yeah,
back in time to us now
yeah,
to sort of either study us, um, probe us, dissect us, breed with us, because
yeah,
something's happened in the future that's caused us to need to come
yeah.
back to sort of a pure form of human.
Yeah, I love that. That's a great idea. That is
But
interesting.
my only sticking point with that is, and I think I've mentioned it before. So you build your time machine today, it becomes
Yeah,
invented today,
yeah,
right? Biden does his thing, CERN develops this wormhole thing. Christ, you can go back in time. You can go forward in time, sorry. Because at that point, the machine is built today. So in my mind, you can go forward in time wherever you want because that machine has been built. You
yeah,
can't go back in time past the point the first time machine being built. So the future humans could only come back to now
yeah.
because the time machine was only invented, the technology was only invented. I don't know
I
what you're
love
laughing for,
conversations.
Ash.
I love conversations like this because you can go
I know
so
this
far with it.
isn't
But
quite paranormal or UFO, but it
no,
is.
I'm
but
It's a
laughing because I
theory.
remember you saying this last time, and I
Yeah.
just can't get my head around why you couldn't go past this point. That's I think we
well,
had the
you won't be
same,
able
Well, I
to go
can't.
past this point because the machine wasn't built.
Yeah.
but you've got the machine to go
So
back in time though.
if I go back in time, how can I go past the point that the technology existed? I can't.
Because that's what time travel is. You are going back in time with that technology.
But
It doesn't matter that
how
that
can I go?
person doesn't have it at that time. You have it, so you can go back. Why can't you? Why couldn't you go back?
Yeah, that's a good point as well. Is that if you do have the time
It's a good
machine,
point.
you should be able to go see Neanderthal. Yeah, that's a great. I love time travel. It's something that I've been thinking about a lot recently. I watched Big Bang Theory. I don't know if you guys watched that, but there's a great scene on Big Bang Theory where they talk about time travel. And have you seen it?
Yeah, yeah.
No.
It's like
Yeah,
we're
the
meeting
bit where
here now.
he's like, whoa, 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 is now the correct context? It's like if for a time that happened in the past, like hadn't. It's brilliant. I love it. Even the
It
wording's
is.
wrong.
It's one of
Like
the.
you can't have gone back into the past if it's the past. It's like have, has, have.
It's an insane theory, and I just can't. It's one of those ones I can't get my head around. How can I go back in time before something was invented that allowed me to go back in time?
Yeah, it's the whole grandfather
I could go
paradox as well.
forward. Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
It is. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So I could go back in time and kill Hitler. But if time
yeah.
travel was possible, why hasn't anybody done it? How has nobody done it? Or have they done it? And at that point, we've split off and you've got two timelines running. So for each time
Yeah,
you
because like
change the
it's like the
past, boom,
grandfather
boom, boom, boom.
paradox. You can't go back and stop your granddad from meeting your nana
No.
because, and if you do, your mum and dad are born, who essentially don't have
Mhm.
you have the time machine to go back and do that.
So how
So
can you
yeah,
go back in
it's
time
just a
before a
messed
time
up
machine?
thing. I love it.
It is. It is. And I love watching films like that. I don't know if you've seen Project Almanac.
I haven't though.
It's a time travel. That's a great film. Quite a light-hearted look. Have you seen
Yeah,
Butterfly Effect? As well?
no, I haven't.
Butterfly Effect. Project Almanac is very similar to that, and the college kids build this time machine and like go to all these parties, and it's really good. It's well worth a watch.
Yeah,
But time travel. There's another one called Safety Not Guaranteed. I don't know if you've seen that film.
I haven't.
Guy
No,
just
I
puts an
don't.
advert in the paper. He said time traveler assistant wanted,
Oh yeah, I have seen this actually. Yeah,
safety not guaranteed, and it's a very good time travel. It's fascinating,
yeah,
but
it
that
really,
is.
really is.
I know we've gone off on a slight tangent there, but my point is
I
that
think
these
people
future
listening
humans,
was fully aware and like prepared for this, given the opening that we talked about alien Jesus, and
yeah, yeah,
it
it
goes
sets the
anywhere.
tone, doesn't it?
Yeah,
It does. But the future human one is a great one. But
yeah,
going back to what I was talking about is the fact that we haven't got this technology allows us to see things that potentially were already there, but we've not been able to see before. That was
yeah.
kind of where I'd got
Yeah,
to before I
and a
went down
classic
that
example of that is the
wormhole.
shrimp. I think it has like four. You can see along like 14. We can only see in such a certain like wave spectrum, but I think the shrimp can see like 14 different um variations of light and color. It's just crazy, like why shrimp would need to do that. But if
Oh,
you can imagine what that thing can see, it blows your mind. And like you spoke about the octopus as well being alien, and like some of the creatures living here on Earth maybe brought from somewhere else. I think there's loads of speculation around the octopus being extraterrestrial. You know, it's just a weird creature. I think it's got like 9 hearts or so many brains. Its defense mechanism is to fire ring. It's mastered
mhm.
camouflage to almost the point of invisibility. You know, if it cuts a limb off, it can grow another one back. It's just an unreal creature when you think about it.
They're classed as sentient beings now in law. I think there's laws against the
Yeah,
fact that they're intelligent enough to be classed as sentient or something like
yeah,
that. So that's insane. It's
yeah. It really,
insane. And
really is.
these things they can escape from all manner of boxes and
Yeah, jars,
but
everything.
jars. Yeah, they can undo jars
Unscrew the jar.
themselves
Yeah,
and from the
yeah.
inside. Yeah, mental, mental. But wow, I didn't think we'd be talking about octopus. I'll be honest with you. So what's the future for Ben and 401 Files? What's happening there?
So the future for me is to get the documentary finished. I want to really crack on with that and get that out there, just so then I've got
Yeah.
one documentary out. I've got a feel for how things go and what to expect in the future. Then I can really start, you know, because this is my first one.
Hmm.
I really want to get it right, but at the same time, it doesn't need to be perfect. You know, it's just a learning curve at this point. But I still
Yeah.
want it to be entertaining and interesting for people to watch. So anyone listening, if you are interested, please do check that out when I release that. So yeah, get the documentary done. I want to carry on with these lives that are happening on the channel because I'm really interested in hearing other people's stories and getting new
Mhm.
faces to the channel because I think having a platform where people can open up and feel like it's a safe zone to speak about these experiences. That's what the world needs right now. There's too many people ridiculing and pulling other people down, and I think that was highlighted massively from what Ash said about me, blowing up in the newspapers and going all over. The comments section was just, at one point I started to think that times have changed and people are becoming more open to the idea of things. But then you read the comment section and you think maybe not. So, um,
Comment section anywhere is a
Yeah, I think
that's
is an
right.
Facebook is just a
Yeah,
interesting place.
cesspool and
yeah. The worst place
myths
on
and
the
all stuff like
planet
that.
has got to be TikTok. Like it does. I've seen all people on there. Right. There was one person on TikTok that was, she was helping elderly people out for free out of her own time. She still got ripped in the comments. So
Mm.
TikTok is a horrible place, social media wise. But yeah, get the documentary done, keep the lives going, make everyone aware that it is a safe place on the 401 files to talk about your experiences with no ridicule. And anyone that ever has shown signs of ridicule, they just get banned straight away from the channel because that's not what I'm promoting. And then I want to get to more conferences as well. I know that you guys get to conferences and stuff. I want to start doing that more because that was really fun. I went to the Awakening conference to watch Whitley Strieber speak. Met a few really friendly people there, and so I want to carry on doing that.
Well, make sure you come to our conference that I put on every year. Come to 2023. We'll make sure you get a free ticket to that. You can come along.
Yeah, brilliant. Cheers, Ash. If you can make that, honestly, I'm really looking forward to getting to these things now and just meeting new people and stuff.
Definitely. So
where can people find you then?
Yep, so you can find me on YouTube at 401 Files, and that's just the numbers 401 Files. I'm also on Instagram, on Discord, and I am on TikTok, but yeah, TikTok. But that's it. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube.
nice one. Well, thanks again. It's been awesome chatting to you again.
Yeah, no
Ben,
worries.
good luck with the documentary. Looking forward to seeing that. When you get progressed with that, we get you back on to promote that when it's out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd also like to add as well
Brilliant.
that I am a future human, and I've just come back this night just to prove my point that we are out there, we do exist, we are real. The only trouble I have now is getting back because the time machine was created in the future.
Doesn't exist now.
Yeah, I love that. We have to get on and just do an episode about that because that's brilliant. I love anyone that can challenge me and open my mind about stuff like that. It's amazing. So
Time travel's mental. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, we'll have to talk about that.
Definitely,
Cool.
absolutely.
Well, thank you very much, Ben, and we'll speak to you soon.
Pursuit of the Paranormal with Ash and Greg.